Hello and welcome to this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. If you're new to the show, welcome. It's good to have you on board. This is the show where you get to share stories about how music, so that's songs, albums, bands, soundtracks, theme tunes, you name it, have interspersed with people, scenarios, events, times, moments in your life. Because I believe we've all got stories to tell when it comes to that. So this is the show for you to do just that and share your stories and music with everybody. My guest on this week's show is Kane Novak, and Kane is someone who's in my network who really kind of helps people with their identity, their message, trying to find their true selves, and is a really cool and inspiring guy. And this conversation was no different. It was wide-ranging, going from the likes of Elvis to Iron Maiden to Red Hot Chili Peppers, as songs and bands that have been prominent in Kane's life. I will warn you, there are a couple of sensitive topics that we do touch upon in the episode, and if anything that you see or listen to triggers you, do reach out to organisations or people that can help you. But as expected, it was a brilliant conversation I had with Kane. We do go through some really poignant stories and some really cool stories as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Kane. And if you'd like to be on the show, just check out the sign up link in the description or place below where you're seeing or watching this. And it'd be great to have you on the show. So without further ado, here's the show with Kane. Enjoy and feel supersonic. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. If you're new to the show, this is the show where you get to take the mic and share stories about how music has interspersed with people, events, scenarios in your life. So that could be songs, could be bands, could be albums, could be soundtracks, it could be whatever what you want it to be. Because I have the opinion that we've all got stories to share when it comes to this kind of thing. So I thought, look, let's have a show where we can just take the mic and share them with an audience who get to hear stories and new or old music. So my guest on this week's show is the brilliant Kane Novak. So Kane is somebody in my network who, he just seems to have this aura and inspiration about him. You know, he predominantly works with leaders, coaches, spiritualists, whomever comes into his walk of life, and kind of gives them the space, the empowerment to sort of deliver their message. And he's someone that literally, when I came across him in my network, he's someone that replied with a real nice energy and was really positive. I thought, do you know what? He's going to be a cool guy to have on the show. And I'm very pleased to say that he accepted my invitation to be on. And literally before we hit recording, we just had a few minutes of conversation. And I can already tell this is going to be a really cool conversation to have. So Kane, welcome to the show. If you want to just introduce yourself and just start wherever you'd like.
Vishad, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. And look, I have to say that the whole concept of music and stories is one of the aspects, it's probably one of the most powerful aspects that we have in anyone's life, in anyone's individual life, because music is such a powerful reminder of experiences. And those experiences are then tenfolded by the stories that we remember. And we were just talking earlier, and anyone who doesn't know me, so I really do help people shift into their new identity of what it is that they need to up level in their own selves to become that self leader in their own aspect, to create more of an impact in the world, in their own leadership, in their own audience, in whatever facet that they feel. And speak the truth. At the end of the day, the most important value that we have is truth. And Jordan Peterson is someone that I follow quite a lot. And it's probably one of the most powerful values that he stands by is truth. Mm-hmm. And if we can't be true to ourselves, well, who are we going to be true to? And I think this whole aspect of looking at stories, and it really made me start thinking of wow, where would I start? Where would I even start to begin in this conversation with music and how that had an effect on my life? And it made me really reflect on some of the most pivotal moments in my life that created trauma, and also healing, and also decisions to shift, and decisions to have a better life. And music was such a powerful support network in that. And I think if I wanted to start anywhere, I would start with my dad. Bless his soul. He's an avid Elvis buff, right?
Oh,
So
nice.
I grew up with, yeah. So I grew up with, back in the 70s, where it was just TV and everyone was in the same cultural experience around the world, right?
Very true. Very true.
Elvis movies were always on, at lunchtime, all the time. And so he would always be watching Elvis movies and singing along to the songs and talking about his experiences. And one song that he always kind of told was when they were all at the drive-ins and Jailhouse Rock just came out.
Oh,
they were at the drive-in and the song,
classic.
classic song, right? But he remembers he was like, he had an FJ Holden at the time, right? That he'd hotted up, souped up.
Oh,
and
wow.
he says he remembers when Jailhouse Rock came on, everyone was on the roof of their car dancing to Jailhouse Rock and twirling their girls. And he said, you just don't get that now.
No, there's I think a twirling and stuff of a different kind, but definitely not back in those times. But that's a great start. That, I mean, to be honest, on this show so far, no one's actually mentioned Elvis, but just you don't have to. It's funny how you don't have to say his second name. It's like you just need the one word, and to an eponymous hit like that, it's like you don't even have to have heard the song, but even just saying the title evokes memories of, as you said, big massive cars and couples and just this real powerful sort of movement.
Yeah, and movement's probably one of the most powerful words to use, because that's what he did. He created a movement. And it was about rebellion, about standing up for your own choices, for freedom of expression, right? And that's what really created the dynamic of good versus evil, if you will, with Elvis, right? He was that change maker in a society that some would deem felt constricted.
I guess if you think of like the geopolitical situation at the time as well, right? I mean, as you said, the good versus bad, that was still quite prominent. You were still coming out of historical events, and as you said, that there's a lot of, kind of a little bit like now, actually, a lot of uncertainty on a global scale, whether it's about economies or politics or all this kind of thing. But as you said, out of those do come those figures of rebellion and sort of your own identity, and they're the ones that I've always said this to people that are interested, like you could go through eras from say 50s, 60s, probably up to say the 90s, 2000s, where certain bands or artists spring to mind in terms of like cultural movement or phenomenon. Like, you could hang your hat on those people driving that culture from whichever means, right? And Elvis seemed to definitely be one of those personalities.
Absolutely. And I think what the fundamental aspect for me in all of that was, I was bullied so much when I was a kid, from the first memories that I have, emasculated by my older sister. And it came out, a couple of years ago that the reason why she, and this is from her words, the reason why she was so brutal to me was because I came into the world. So here's the interesting part, is that when my sister was born, my mum went through a really intense birth. So she ended up having a dry birth. and if anyone understands what a dry birth is, her water broke and she thought she peed herself. And instead of going to the hospital, she stayed home. And anyway, ended up having a dry birth and something like 167 stitches, internal stitches after the birth.
Wow.
And was told, yeah, intense, and was told that she was never going to have kids again. And the interesting part was she had 6 miscarriages, and then the 7th time around was me. So it was a little bit special that I hung on and that I existed. And it was in that I guess I took a lot of attention. I don't know, as a kid, right? Whatever the parents were doing. Yeah. But my sister had, admitted that because I'd taken away all of the attention, that she was angry about it. And that anger just grew over time, right? And she didn't have the capacity to, grieve or forgive or whatever that you will. So because I felt so hopeless at such a young age, so defenseless, I looked at people like that, like Elvis. Like, if you will, the part of the reason why Elvis was a resonating aspect to me was that strength, was the strength to stand up and say something, and not be scared of it. And it's really interesting because if I was to look at a lot of the songs that I loved listening to, they were ballads. I loved ballads growing up, right? Things that had meaning, things that made you look inside yourself, or things that created more strength. Or I would look at people, characters from history, and look at their strength, because that's what I was missing. That's what I felt like I was missing. That's what I wanted. That's what I was desiring. And even though Beatles was around, I didn't get into Beatles till much later, because they weren't that pillar of strength that I was looking for.
I can understand that.
And the next person that I really idolized was, do you remember Happy Days, the TV show Happy Days?
I do. The Fonz, right?
Yeah, the Fonz.
Yeah.
Hey. Snap his fingers, a girl would be there.
They don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, that's right. So that's that song from Happy Days, the theme song. They went for like 11 years, and that theme song itself was a resonance of Happy Days, and it was something that I was, underlying, really wanting. I wanted peace and happiness, and that strength to stand up for myself, and which I didn't have. I felt like I just kept getting stomped on, and every time I stood up, someone would step on me. Right? So it was really, really very, very interesting of who I would move towards. And the next really big aspect, and I was really reflecting on this, was Iron Maiden.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hell of a switch from Elvis to Iron Maiden, but I love it. Wow. Go on.
Well, Iron Maiden, a friend of mine, a neighbor, got me into Iron Maiden. And what I loved about Iron Maiden was the lyrics.
Yes.
The lyrics. They had so many ballads. And it was about the lyrics. It was about telling stories, about stories from history.
100%. It's a real art the way they do it. But go on, carry on.
I had their posters all on every wall in my room, even on the ceiling. And for anyone that doesn't know Iron Maiden, they use a mascot in all of their artwork called Eddie, and he's like this skeleton kind of thing, right?
Yep.
and I just kind of, again, it was about strength. It was about standing up. It was about coming out from the darkness, right? It was about rising above oppression.
Yes. Their discography has had this remarkable, I think, power to tell the stories in an untoned, there's no watering down of it. It's whatever it was. It's flagrant. It was really. I've never been to a live show, but I've heard that even live they did there's a lot of stage presence. It's not just the band. It's like they've got like a massive papier-mâché Eddie, or the works of it. So it's just it adds even to the performance and story of the band too. But as you say, if you just go through their albums, out of sheer coincidence, before we came on, I was listening to an Iron Maiden album. There we go. But I think whatever era you pick them, and they're obviously still going to this day. They started wherever they were, 70s, 80s, up till now, the present day. Some of their stuff through all their times is so powerful in that regard. But might get readily dismissed as like, oh, they're either too loud or too fast, or just maybe doesn't fit people's ears. But as you said, there's a real rich vein of storytelling going on.
Yeah, very much so. One of their songs that I really resonated with was Alexander the Great.
Nice.
And again, it was about strength. It was about someone who was powerful, someone that stood up, someone that yeah, okay, so he was a conqueror, yeah, okay. But it was about strength, and I think that's the beautiful thing about me reflecting, coming on to this podcast, was reflecting about what songs were really transformational for me, and why were they transformational. And it was all about, like, in those younger years, it was all about finding inner strength. It was about having courageousness, and me following these personalities or these songs that demonstrated that, because that's what I lacked.
That's a really powerful message in itself, as you said, and it's a great way of tapping into the ethos of the show. And as you said, like, as you said, when people reflect back or hark back on the idea of music, it is, you immediately think of those moments that led to change for yourself, whatever that change might be. And you're talking obviously from a very formative year stage where personalities, theme tunes, bands have come along with that message. And there is something to be said about lyrical prowess. We're not looking to psychoanalyze or dissect every line that's in there. What does that mean? What's going to... But these whole sets of lyrics, you take Elvis and Iron Maiden, right, as these two not, I guess, polar examples, but two distinct examples, right? One talked about having a good time, being liberal, and the force of personality. Whereas the other, as you said, talked about historical figures, historical places, historical times, but the storytelling through both. And as you said, there's messages that you can take from it, and they'll be unique to you. That's, I think, the power of these moments when we stick there, because as you said, if that leads to change for us, then of course it's going to stick, because then we kind of use them as a bedrock for us to go, right, well, first of all, you introduce yourself to the possibility that you can change things, and that change is only meant for you. Like, as a very random tangent, I saw on the news that we have here that to Taylor Swift has brought out an album, apparently. Apologies to any Swift... Is it Swifties, their fan? Oh, I don't know whether fans listening, but yeah, that's it. Right. Okay, fine. No, there was an article reading that apparently in one of her songs on a new album, she mentions a pub in South London, where I am. Not in South London, but in London. And that pub has now been, like, visited by, like, seemingly hundreds and thousands of these fans, and you're like, okay, wow, even a small snippet from a line that, okay, you've got to know what the context is and about, but it just led to like so many people feeling that kind of movement to go, oh, I know that place and that what she's referring to, let's go and, do you know, that's music and inspiring these stories, these moments. So people that have gone there, they're gonna have a story to tell their friends, their family, their future, you know, family, etc. That, yeah, I went to this place. But that's the power that you can evoke through music and stories.
100%. And I think I don't think there's a person exists that hasn't been impacted by some song, by some band, by some music of some sort. And I've got a very wide palette of music. You know, I mean, I grew up, you know, the teenage years in the early 90s and stuff like that. So, you know, that rave experience was coming through. And funny enough, like, here you go. I was telling you at the start of the show, you know, the aspect of, you know, I was sexually assaulted a couple of times, you know, when I was 10 and 11, and you know, that was just a reflection of, you know, the worthlessness that I felt as a human being at that age, right? Because of all the emasculation, all the bullying, and mental and physically, and at school as well, you know. So and I guess that was the subconscious programming of, you know, that I'll get bullied anyway. So what did I create? Bullying aspects, right? And I was saying that you know, there was a dynamic shift for me where at 15 years old, I had been humiliated at school in this one afternoon, and it was on my way home where I came across a flyer for a triathlon, and I took the flyer off the notice board, and I put it in my pocket, and I rode home, and I laid in my bed that afternoon just staring at it, right, reading it over and over and over and over again, until I finally went out and spoke to my mum about doing this triathlon, and she turned around while she was cooking and was like, "What? What did you say?" I said, "I want to do a triathlon, Mum." And she was like, "Really? Why?" I said, "Because I want to do one." It's just like, "Okay, if you really want to." And when is it? I said, "It's in 3 months." She said, "Well, you're going to have to start training." And it's like, "I know, so I need some help. I need to get a bike." I didn't have a good bike. I had just a BMX at that point. So they bought me a mountain bike. So I could start training. And you know, I remember, like, my dad would he used to drive a taxi at that point, right? And he would get home at 4 a.m. He'd wake me up, and we would start training. And when I went on the bike leg, he would drive past me at every 5Ks, right? And he'd scream out the window what time I was doing, right? And then this one day, this was about 2 weeks out to the triathlon, I had this awesome headwind, and I threw everything at this training session, and every 5Ks, I kept looking around, like, and he never came past, right? And I just kept riding. I was like an animal, right? Coming out of a cage. And I was like, I'm going to do the best that I can, right? And I saw these two older guys up ahead of me, and they were on racing bikes. And I was like, I'm going to catch him.
No.
And I was pedaling my little ass off on a mountain bike. You know, I didn't even have foot pegs, right? Just brute force, right? I'm going to change my existence. And this is the pivotal moment. I'm going to throw everything that I had in celebrating myself.
I wish someone had filmed. I wish someone had filmed a few of these rides that you had. This sounds like the lost Rocky montage. You know, when he's training in Rocky 4 or with Apollo Creed in Rocky 3, it's like, this is the lost version where you're just banging it on this a pedal bike, and then your dad's driving behind you, go, yeah, come on, get faster, you know, this is your time, and then it culminates in you just bombing past these two guys on the racer bikes going, yes, let's have it.
That's exactly what it was like. So as I was catching up to them, I started passing them. And as I'm passing them, they both looked at me and they're both like looking at my bike and they're looking at each other. And the guy closest to me, he screams out, "Get a racing bike, you'll go faster."
Brilliant.
As I'm passing them.
Fantastic.
As I got to the end, I got to the point where I normally met my dad. And I'm waiting there. I must have been waiting for like 5 minutes. And he finally drove up and came up. And he was like, jumped out of the car. He's like, "How long have you been sitting here for?" He's still timing me. I said, "About 5 minutes." He's like, "That's the fastest you've ever done. Like that was it. I couldn't catch up to you."
Fantastic. As I say, I wish somebody had filmed it.
Yeah, and you bring up another icon that I looked at, and that was the Tiger from Rocky, right? And what did Rocky stand up for? For standing up for what he believed in, for that he could become a champion, that he could throw everything at it, no matter what. And again, I was at an age where that influenced me so much, because it was that inner strength, that the Tiger, that you can stand up to people. Again, something I was missing, and that very first triathlon, I came second in the state for my age.
Wow.
Which was, for me, was just this huge, I don't know, acknowledgement in myself. And then that kind of shifted my whole existence. And I had an amazing group of people around me at that time, like, that really supported me, like really close friends. And you know what, if you will, all of them were probably outcasts.
That's awesome that you're able to have that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was. And we're still in touch. Would you believe it? We even have a messenger group just for us. It's called Rages.
Nice. That's brilliant. That's really cool. Because as I say, it combines, that's obviously a really powerful and significant moment for you, right? Because it's tangible proof to yourself that, what you're capable of. Through all that training, all the hard work, all the perseverance, and to delivering a performance, that's real proof that no one can then take away from you. But, to augment that with the people around you, I talk in my line of work about love and connection being one of our core human needs. And in a world today, seemingly, where we're struggling with that in a lot of capacity, the fact that you're able to have this moment in your time alongside the support network is a really significant and powerful combination. But yeah, because especially it came at a time, as you said, when you were, finding your own identity and proving it. It seems to be a really significant moment.
Yeah, it really was. The really interesting part was that I moved states when I was 14 years old. And when I say move states, I lived in Melbourne City, and I was at a private all-boys school growing up. And I moved states, 2 states away, so I think it's like 3,000 kilometres, to Queensland on the Gold Coast, surfers paradise of Gold Coast. Back then it was like a little surfy town. So here I was, this Polish descendant, in amongst a public school, because I couldn't get into any of the private schools when I moved. They were all full. And so the only school I could get into was a co-ed public school. And in that year, which was grade 9, everything I did in grade 8, they were doing in grade 9.
Wow.
And so I was really bored, and I was getting bullied a lot. So it was really a fundamental aspect where, and I think I was telling you, I wanted to become an architect because I chose a professional field where I could be creative, but I could be by myself. I could be in the safety of my own environment. No one would pick on me, and that was part of the reason why I chose it. And once I did this triathlon, it shifted my whole dynamic about my strength, about that I could stand up for myself. And the only time I got into fights in school after that period was because I was standing up for other people that were getting bullied. And that in itself, for me, shifted the way that I just viewed my life. Right, that here I was, someone that didn't have a voice. Even when I changed schools, right? My principal from my private co-ed school, private all boys school, sent a letter to the new principal of whatever school I was going to, saying that Kane doesn't have any friends. He doesn't try very hard. He's very quiet. He keeps to himself. All of this kind of stuff.
And who asked him to do that? Sorry, is that a usual thing? Like,
I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe my parents asked them, because I needed to try and get in. They were trying to get me into another private school.
Right.
So
okay.
So, and I saw the letter. So, in a way that was really, I guess, hurtful as well.
Well, too right. I mean,
Going,
someone's suddenly made this character assassination seemingly, and you're like, well, isn't this meant to help me in this new environment? But this is like, didn't seem to, from what I'm hearing, serve its purpose. But a curious thing.
Yeah, and after I did that, it's when I started really making friends, and people. I got a lot of attention from girls for the first time in my life, and I felt that funzy coming through, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna start taking on the identity of Funzy, right?
Hey.
That's what I really tried to create for myself, and one of the most powerful songs during that period. With that group of friends was from the Rolling Stones.
Go on.
It was You Can't Always Get What You Want.
Oh, that's another Perling number.
Right?
Great song.
The reason why it was so fundamental was that group of friends that we grew up with, girls and guys, we watched The Big Chill. Do you remember the movie The Big Chill?
It rings a bell somewhere.
Oh my gosh. It was about a whole bunch of friends coming together. And the very start of the movie, they were all on their way to a funeral, to one of their friends' funerals that they grew up with, right? And all the characters in it, they all resembled one of the people in our group. Like, so everyone, by the time
so you can strongly identify with it.
Yeah. And the song at the end of the funeral scene was the Rolling Stones, You Can't Always Get What You Want. So it had this emotional connection of the strength of dynamic of this group of people that had come together as teenagers, and the things that we'd shared together, and the debauchery and the going off and drinking, and telling parents, yeah, we're going here, but actually we went to the beach and got drunk, and all these moments that we shared together, discovery of life, discovery of who we are, and sex, and I guess sex, drugs, and rock and roll was the theme, right? Back in the 1990, 91, 92, back in that yeah, it was that self-discovery, and that's what that song held for all of us, was this dynamic that all these friends had come together, and it was almost like that movie was like this vow of all of us that we're all going to stay together for all of our lives, and no matter what happens in our lives, we'll come together. And it's exactly what we've done. We've constantly every couple of years tried to get everyone to come together, the families and things like that. It's just beautiful.
There's something to be said, when you have that combination, I think, of films and its soundtrack. That's why I mentioned, in the bit at the beginning, that it's songs, it's albums, it's soundtracks. Because, as you said, often we forget that actually we heard a song from maybe a film, or we remember a song and then it's shown in a film. Like you have the great example now of the Big Chill and the Stones song at the end. I remarked back to a couple of years ago when, even a little bit before that, when I first saw the trailer for The Batman, the most recent one with Rob Pattinson. And when I noticed when the trailer begun, it started with Nirvana's Something in the Way, the sort of 4 slow bass notes and chords. I'm like, I've heard that song before. It didn't immediately click, but as it played, I'm like, oh wow, it's the Nirvana song. And as the trailer played, and you could see how they've tied in the song into both the trailer and the film, it's like, wow, that's such a magnificent way to utilize both the song in the film. And since then, so many composers that we see, like Hans Zimmer, the effect that he's had on films, the powerful poignancy and the theme he can capture. And he's done The Dark Knight, he's done Spectre, he's done no, not Oppenheimer, I forget which one, more recently. But again, it's something that when you take the film away, it's like the soundtrack or song still seems to resonate. And if it happens to be a popular song, then it's like, as you said, you remember the song with the film, or the film with the song. It's like the two just are. It's what I call anchoring. The whole idea that the two are linked together. And this is what I mean. So whenever I'm sure whenever you hear the song elsewhere, it's like, there's my group of friends, there's my film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
And I think the really interesting part, so I was saying before we got onto to recording, was that in grade 11 I was studying to be an architect, and then because I had all this confidence in me about my life, but still subconsciously I still believe I was worthless and everything else, right? That a friend invited me to an audition to support her. She was like, hey, do you want to support me? Like, I'm really nervous about this audition for the school's theatre restaurant. And I was like, yeah, I'll come along, I'll help you. And I was there, and she did her audition, and they were asking me to audition. And I was petrified. There was no chance.
No, not me.
Right? No way in the world. And they kept asking me, and I just felt this overwhelming resistance of just wanting them to shut up, because it was almost like I was feeling like I was being bullied, right?
Yeah.
And I just said yes. And I read the script and got the part, which was one of the lead roles. And then when I performed the very first time, that next day I bumped into my art teacher, and she was kind of in shock, right? She bumped into me, she was in shock, and she was like, oh, Kane, I saw you in the theatre restaurant last night. And she just looked at me with such light in her eyes, and she was like, I think you found your gift. You were amazing. And it was that moment, that pivotal moment right there, that was the first time that I truly got acknowledged at school for something. And it shifted my whole perspective of what I wanted to do in life. And I made a decision that I was going to become an actor. I didn't know what that looked like. I had no idea, right? I just went, this is what I'm going to do. I just fell in love. And halfway through grade 11, I changed all my subjects from, physics and science and maths 1, maths 2, all of that, into speech and drama and dance. And then tried to figure out a way to tell my dad that I had just changed everything.
Yeah,
that I wasn't going to be an architect. I'm going to be an actor. And I was really petrified about telling him. And this group of friends, and the funny thing, the song that comes to mind right at that period was the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So right then, their biggest hit was Under the Bridge.
Yeah.
And again, a ballad, right? A ballad about life. And it was that song there that our group of friends, we would sing to that, we would cry to that song, and it was a driving force of me trying to get the courage to confront my dad. And it wasn't until we were having this party with all my friends there, right? And we were at my best mate's place, and my parents were there, and they were drinking with his parents, and all my friends were like, "This is the best time to go and tell him. He's really drunk and he's really happy. Just go and tell him now." So I did, and they all went and got him from upstairs, right? And they all brought him downstairs, and they were all like, "Kane's got something to tell you."
What way to tell him is like, oh my, what could this be like?
And I'm staring at him, and I just started bawling my eyes out, right? And I'm like, "Dad, I've decided to become an actor. I'm not going to do architecture, and I've been so scared to tell you. And I just, this is what I really love."
That's good acting skills right there. Oh, man.
And he just kind of stared at me, and he was kind of like shocked, and he was like, "I don't care. I just want you to be happy."
Oh, that's a brilliant reaction, though.
Yeah.
I mean, drinks or no drinks. I mean, that's a. You mentioned the affirming moment when your teacher said, "This is your gift," but that can be an affirming moment itself, that you get that validation, acceptance from your caregivers. And it's funny, it's the phrasing is in a way of like, well, yeah, I don't care. It's like suddenly that link between what you do as a profession, as a career, as a whatever, and your self-worth, suddenly that link is broken in one, phrasing of like, it doesn't matter as long as you're happy. And it's such a, I think people underestimate the power that can have. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be fine and everything's going to work out, etc., etc. But it's the new message that you're getting is like, it's not about what you end up doing or earning, or you're not in a race with everybody else around you. It's like, okay. So how did it feel for you when you heard that? Like, you've been building up all this time. You're like, oh, I've delivered it, and it's like, wow, you get that reaction.
Oh, just relief, right?
Yeah,
relief.
Yeah.
And again, because of all that experience of being bullied and worthless and dumb and fat and ugly and no one loves you and all of that kind of stuff, I was so scared to stand up and be heard. Right? So it took, like I was saying earlier, it took me months to actually get the courage to tell him. And the reason why that song was such an interesting aspect of friendship, which was the Rolling Stones. When I went to film school, I was only 19. I was at film school, learning acting, film acting and things like that, right? And one of the guys there, he was in his 40s. His name was Jag R. Sherrington. He was the lead singer of the Rolling Stone show.
No.
And they were the only at that time, the only Rolling Stones tribute show that had been endorsed by the Rolling Stones themselves.
I mean, this is just all coming together nicely now, isn't it?
And he looked, I kid you not, he looked like Mick Jagger. Like, serious, like full on lanky, same mouth, same big mouth and everything. And I ended up moving into his house. And the really interesting part to all of this, and I guess it leads into one of the biggest songs that I've written down here as one of the most pivotal parts of my life. I moved in with him, and everyone that lived there they were either in a band, in music, or they were some sort of artist, right? And they lived in a cul-de-sac, so a dead-end street.
Yeah.
And there were another 5 houses, and they were all musicians. Everyone knew each other or played in their band or everything, right? So here I was studying acting, and surrounded by musos and creatives, and I was there, and I had my 21st birthday there. And this is where, it's the same place I met my girlfriend. And it's really funny, from the age of 17, every girlfriend that I had was 7 years older than me. Right?
How did you work that one? How did you manage to get that? What's going on there?
I just loved big, deep conversations, right?
Yeah, maybe 7's your thing, 7th child, 7 years.
Yeah. Good point. Well done. Good observation. And it was an interesting part, because the girl that I met at film school that I fell in love with, she was an actress. She was 7 years older than me. I had my 21st birthday. He actually got all his bandmates to put on 5 bands for me on my 21st birthday. It was in an old Queenslander. I don't know if you know what a Queenslander house is, but it's an old federal type house that was built in the 1800s kind of thing, right?
Right.
Back in the 1800s, big wooden kind of massive high ceilings, 9-foot ceilings kind of thing, 10-foot ceilings.
Okay.
And we turned that house, we spent 7 days redesigning that house and turning it into a medieval castle. Right?
Wow.
We covered the house in cardboard. We painted all the cardboard to make it look like a castle from the outside. We built a dungeon corridor from the front of the house all the way down to the back of the house that went into this cool area. He had a sound studio downstairs, which is where we put the bands. And it was one of those moments where you never forget, right? It's just imprinted, having bands all play all night long on your 21st birthday in your
a medieval
castle. Yeah, in a medieval castle. With my girlfriend at the time, and we ended up getting into quite an intense relationship over a few years, and she ended up getting pregnant, and we ended up having 2 children together. But the dynamic of that was that the relationship became quite distorted, and there was domestic abuse where she would lose her shit and she would punch and beat me and all of that kind of thing. And it got to the point where there was breakups and togethers again, and again the true aspect of what I was missing was my masculine, right. I still felt like what I was reflecting into that relationship was the essence of what my sister kind of created with me, right? That I could get pushed around, that there was this aspect, and I had so many wounds, and at that age I had no idea what that kind of meant, right? But when I reflect back, that's exactly what had happened. I felt like I could get pushed around, and maybe that's why I was going out with older women, right? That aspect of not being fully in my masculine strength, that I was kind of learning from them, if you will, being guided by them, if you will. But when there was one particular day where I was getting beaten up and I saw my child copy her actions, and that was it. That was the breaking point for me. And I ended the relationship. I was like, this isn't right. This is not what relationships are about. This isn't love. This is bullshit. This is horrible and everything else. And the song at the time that got me through that period was Ben Harper. And I'd been introduced to Ben Harper about a year and a half, 18 months prior to that event. And the song that was driven into my heart was, oh my God, what's the name of the song? Did I write it down? No, I didn't write it down. Oh shit. This is an emotional part, man.
Take your part. Take your time, sir. Take your time.
I'm having a moment because this song, I'm going to read you the lyrics of this song it's from the album. Oh my God, I've got a brain freeze because I'm going into this emotional aspect, right?
As I say, take your time. No rush.
This whole song, I'm going to read you the lyrics of it, which is because I was listening to it yesterday. It hurts to look into the mirror at myself, and it hurts even more to be with somebody else. It's so hard to do and so easy to say, but sometimes you just have to walk away. They say time will make all this go away, but time that has taken away all my tomorrows and turned them into yesterdays. And the reason why this song is such a powerful reminder of the experience that I went through at such a young age, I was only 24.
Wow, so still like just coming out of your formative years. Wow.
Yeah. 2 kids, trying to still find myself as a person in the world, as a person, as a man.
Is the song called "Walk Away"? By the way,
"Walk Away," yes.
Yeah, I was just googling the first line as you said it. I'm like, okay, this sounds really powerful. So it's like let's get the title. But yeah, I mean yeah. Sorry, carry on. You were saying.
So this particular song resonated with me for years. And one of the hardest things to go through during that period was shame and guilt. And that took me a very long time to overcome. And I came to that place of forgiveness for myself, forgiveness for her, forgiveness for the situation. But if there's anyone that is listening to this, and it's a really powerful reminder that as I've grown and over the last few years, and it's funny, when I went through my divorce 6 years ago, after almost 20 years in a relationship, and another 2 children, that song came back again in reference to the emotions that I felt. But this time I wasn't leaving the relationship, she was leaving me. But it still had the same nostalgia.
But in a slightly different guise now, right?
Yeah. It was the same pain because there was still shame and guilt associated to it. Right? The shame that the marriage didn't work, that I couldn't make it work. And I never believed that I was never going to be married at that point. But I knew that I was also destined for greater things that had to take shape. And that's why I do what I do. Why I went into transformational coaching was because people can live in guilt and shame for very, very long periods of time in their life and not realize, like, they put it away and they put it in a little box. But I went through that experience, and I know it doesn't serve you, and you have to do everything that you possibly can to be able to come to a place of forgiveness. And the reason why that song was such a pivotal aspect was because, and as I've spoken about throughout this whole podcast, is that I was always interested in ballads and songs that had meaning and purpose and strength and finding that strength. So at 24 years old, I was going into this very deep philosophical aspect of life and what it was to make decisions to change your structure if it isn't working for you, even though it hurts so much, which is what that song is about, that I have to make a decision, I have to walk away, but it's tearing me apart, and I don't know how to see my tomorrows as bright and beautiful. And when I went through my divorce, after everything I've learned in my life, to be able to be in a place of happiness and joy and creation, right? I was in the film industry for over 3 decades, film and theater, and everything was about creation. Life is about creation. Relationships are about creation. And part of the reason why the marriage fell apart was because we weren't doing things together, right? We had become ships in the night because we were looking after children, and she had her government job, which was shift work, and I was working my roster around her roster and to support the kids as parents. And we were seeing each other 2 days. There was a period there for like a year that we were only seeing each other for 2 full days in a month, right? We were just tag teaming, and it was destructive and hard to come back from. But we have to come to this place of love in ourselves. If I can leave anything about the importance of music and the importance of witnessing the history in our lives and the strength that we find and the people that we have around us, and the music that leaves such memories. It's not just memories, but it's a frequency on our soul that these particular songs, whatever individual is, they will have a frequency that is sewn up into the fabric of their soul. So whenever they hear that song, it ignites the memories, it ignites their soul, it ignites a frequency and a vibration inside them that takes them back to a place, whether it's sad or if it's joyful. And that experience in my life, the sexual assault, the bullying, the standing up and being seen in the film and entertainment industry, my persistence, my true understanding of why humans react the way they do. Like, it was a lifelong journey to discover why humans react and respond the way they do in any situation. And it's always associated to the history of the events in their life.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, art, theater, film, painting is a reflection of life itself.
Yeah.
And the reason why we and music as well. Music is a reflection of life. It's in the core fabric of our soul, and that's why music in movies is so powerful, because 50% of a movie, the visual is the sound, and that's our life: sound and seeing. And if I can leave anything for anyone that has any guilt or shame associated to any events, any decisions that they've made in their lives, bring forgiveness to it. find the purpose of the reason of why you needed to go through these things, to be able to discover a more powerful strength inside your own self, and also discover the true aspect of who you are without the belief systems that have been presented to you, but the true gift of who you are as a true person, and knowing that all experiences, whether someone's died, whether someone's passed, whether someone has beaten you up, whether someone's left a relationship, whatever it may be. And like you were saying earlier, Vishad, relationships are the cornerstone of what our existence is. And I truly believe that our from the moment that we're born into a relationship, and we're always seeking safety. But safety truly comes from the safety of our own selves. When we feel safe about who we are, so we can actually be authentic, so we can be vulnerable, so we can speak our greater purpose, so we can actually put action steps into our own purpose, so we can live the embodiment of who we really are. That is the most powerful thing that you can do in your life. To step into the power of you, to step into the strength of you, and no matter how much it hurts at whatever period in your life, that there's always a greater reason for it. That the pain is only there to make you see a different perspective of what life is. And I think that particular song is what drove me to truly understand how to bring happiness inside chaos.
There's a couple of amazing phrases in there. The frequency of the soul is an amazing way to put how music, be it in a song or an album or a band or soundtrack, theme tune, whatever, resonates specifically with us. And as you said at the end about the chaos within, is, I mean, to be honest, I could just click the last 3 minutes and just have it played and saying, people, just listen to this. It's just an incredibly articulate way of saying that. I guess on that point then, I realise that we're running close to the hour here. If you could quickly answer this for us. So if someone just heard those last few minutes about, the impact of music, and you can stem away from music for a little bit here if you'd like to, but what would you say would be the first step for someone to realize or put into action what you said into their own lives?
It's a big question. It's really deep.
I appreciate that, and I'm like, as I was saying, I'm like, hang on, is that a bit big for like a cliffhanger for the end of the episode? But I thought, well, look, let's see what you have to say.
The greatest thing that you can do. So, I'm going to use the analogy of what Dr. Caroline Leaf uses, and she continues to use in so many of her podcasts and her videos and her trainings. She's a neuroscientist, has been a neuroscientist for like 38 years. She's studied the mind and is absorbed about how the mind works, and her teachings are phenomenal. And the greatest analogy that she uses is simplicity. She uses two trees. One tree, they're only small little trees, like a bonsai tree. One tree is dead, one tree is alive. One's thriving, one's dead. And she said, these are your thoughts. If your mind is filled with negative thoughts, your tree dies. Your mind shrinks. You actually decrease your cell's productivity in your body. If you think happy thoughts, your tree actually thrives. It's science. This isn't creativity. This isn't a song. This isn't a movie. This is facts. This is real life. Negative thoughts destroy, positive thoughts thrive. Anyone that is challenged with any particular aspect, if they're in anxiety or if they're in depression, the most important aspect that they need to do is to fill themselves with positivity. Listen to podcasts, positive podcasts, dig deep into their own history to find the cause of the problems in their life, because pain sits in the body, right? The ancient Chinese meridian pressure points, that's why they have acupressure. Acupressure is a medically viewed art, which you can get insurance for, right? So they know that pressure points are one of the most fundamental aspects of getting blocks in the body, and those blocks are emotional. So the longer that we hold on to negative aspects of our whole history, of our story, of our journey, of our life, the longer that we hide away from the guilt and the shame or the unforgiveness or whatever it may be, or the anger towards someone, the more that we create dis-ease in our body. But the dis-ease in our body, the pains in the shoulders and the back and the legs and the ankles and the wrists and the head or whatever, the migraines, whatever it may be, comes from a source of where the original trauma stemmed from.
Yeah.
From the event in your life.
Program experiences, I say.
Right. So anyone that, like, you know, one of the greatest songs that I love is the song Happy.
Why not?
And it was in the movie Despicable Me.
Yep.
Right. And I came across that song watching it with my son, younger son, who used to watch movies from the age of 12 months, full movies.
Oh, nice.
My very first son. Yeah, serious. And his very first movie that he watched all the way through was Shrek. And, you know, a 12-month-old. And he still, till this day, 11 years old, watches movies, loves them, right? He's a deep, deep thinker. But the whole aspect of living with a greater purpose, living in your greatest potential, is not being scared of seeing who you are and the wounds associated to the darkness that's inside you because of the events in your life. Like if you've been sexually assaulted, well, you have to deal with it. You have to come to a place of forgiveness. You have to come to a place of acceptance. You have to bring it love, the same amount of love that you bring into a relationship that you should be bringing into the same darkness into the story in your own life, because there's only positive and negative that exists in the world. So finding songs that don't make you sad, that actually make you think, that make you look at the deeper side of your life, that so you can shift the perspective of why these things happen to you, because everything's perspective. It's all about perspective. If you look at Dr. Caroline Leaf, it's exactly what she talks about. You need to shift what that meant for you. It's everything about mindset. It's everything about potential, living in your fullest potential. It's about knowing that we're always peeling the layers and always discovering new aspects, new existence. And it's living in that aspect of knowing that inside us we can reflect on the pain and stuff like that, and go, that was some of the most intense periods of my life, like that first relationship that ended in such a horrible way. You know, there was parental alienation and everything like that was going on. And the pain that I was feeling, right? You know, I'd have birthday and Christmas gifts all dumped in the middle of the night back on my doorstep, right? It's you know, shit behavior that was completely unnecessary. And like I said, there was a lot of healing that I needed to go through, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of releasing the guilt and the shame associated to it, and also you know, feeling that I'd missed something, but really I was just discovering a greater me, a greater me of being able to view these stories in my life as the true strength, the true ability of seeing who I really am, and knowing that with all those experiences, I'm still able to live my life in a joyful aspect, in a high vibration, in giving love to me, so I can give love to my children, so I can give love to another person, whether it's a family member or an intimate relationship. But those true fundamentals is about self-discovery and celebrating the shit experiences. It's celebrating them and going, you know what? They were freaking awesome. And I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be doing what I do if it wasn't for the experiences of being emasculated, of bullying, of being sexually assaulted, of parental alienation, of having a breakup, domestic violence, of going through those experiences and making decisions that empowered me so I could be me.
That's a really succinct and great way to answer that long question, which I didn't necessarily mean. And to be honest, we could carry on for ages, but I'm just conscious of time. And as I said, I'm really mindful that, to be honest, I could have you back on the show and we could do another hour. But and again, like I keep saying on the show, this hour goes by too quick. There's so much fun and stories and stuff to dive into. But Kane, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all the great music and B, the great stories, and especially thankful for being so open as well. And look, for you viewers and listeners who are watching this, if you want to be in the show, just check out the link wherever you see or watch this, and we can get you on the show as well. Kane, before we close, if you want to let people know where they can find you to reach out to you more, to find out, etc.
Absolutely. So I'm just about to open my webpage, which is called Luminary Leaders. So leaders that want to shine their light into the world and have a greater impact with their story and their voice and their message, and also break through the subconscious patterns, the hidden corners that they can't see, and use my skills to allow them to be their greatest version. Anyone can find me on social media, on Facebook, which is Kane Novak, and YouTube is Kane Novak, on Instagram, Kane Novak, TikTok, I am Kane Novak. I'm Kane Novak. I'm a little bit everywhere, so reach out if you have any questions. If you feel like you've got a block, you feel like you're challenged by something. I actually do I only take on a couple of people at a time, but I take people through 4 sessions, and in 4 sessions they will discover the golden thread in their life and the recurring inner dialogue, and pinpoint the exact point of when that recurring inner dialogue actually happened, so they can use those tools to empower themselves in every step that they take. So that's certainly an offer that's open for anyone that feels like they have been through everything. They've worked with multiple coaches, multiple mentors, psychologists, whatever. You feel like you're missing something, then that is an avenue to go through the story extraction.
Awesome. Kane, thank you so much again for being on the show, and we'll catch you all in the next episode of Soundtrack of Your Life.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, Vishad. Take care.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. Please do like the video or podcast, comment with your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and sign up to be a guest on the show. Feel supersonic.